'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse.
The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there.
The President and First Lady reading the classic "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." You know, if he can do that, he can't do dumb things. Is that asking too much? I don't think so. Welcome to the Chris Plant Show. Hope you had a great Christmas. It's Mike Opelka sitting in for my friend Chris Plant this week. And it's also Boxing Day. And Candy Cane Day. And the first day of Kwanzaa, which I don't know a single person who celebrates Kwanzaa. Not one. And I have a pretty diverse group of people surrounding me. It's one of those amazing things. Kwanzaa. It's been around now since, I think it was 1965. If you stopped 100 people on the street and asked them, either in New York City or Lincoln, Nebraska, and asked them, hey, can you give me the basic premise of Kwanzaa? I don't think anybody can tell you. That doesn't mean there isn't something good in it. It just means I think we give it too much attention. A lot of stories bubbling today. A lot of stories we have to get to. There's news happening as we have now decided 103 attacks on American troops is enough. 103 attacks in a couple of months, and now 3 of our soldiers in serious risk after they were hit by these Iranian-backed surrogates. We had 3 American troops now are in hospital with serious injuries. And President Biden has finally authorized some striking back. Hopefully it'll get the message across. But with Iran, you never know. Because Iran's probably thinking, well, how can you be striking at us when you gave us all this money? You gave us billions, and now you're telling us we can't use it to do whatever we want? It is kind of ironic, isn't it? I'm sure people are catching on. I hope they are. We have 315 days to an election. But this is now getting into the point where wounded Americans, seriously injured American soldiers. And I know somewhere out there someone's saying, hey, this guy didn't really blink when we lost 13 Americans getting out of Afghanistan. Why would he worry about some wounded Americans? Well, I hope he would. I hope he would worry about every drop of blood spilled in the name of our pursuit of freedom around the world. I would hope. So let's hope. Let's hope we actually do take some serious military power to the Iranian, not just to the Iranian proxies, but maybe give Iran a little message. I seem to recall Ronald Reagan took out half the Iranian Navy after we got our hostages back, and Iran was playing around again. So let's hope that happens. We're also going to get into Rand Paul's annual Festivus publication of government waste, which is always entertaining, but also infuriating at the same time. And we'll look at some of the media malpractice for 2023. There is a lot of media malpractice that needs to be pointed out. And our friends at Grabien, Tom Elliott and the people at Grabien, isolated some of the best of the worst of the media malpractice. We're trying to keep an eye on what's happening on the border because, without Congress sitting around and arguing over closing the border or money needed to close the border, the mass media is not paying attention to it, except for Fox. Fox has still got Bill Maloogian down on the border talking to people and documenting the thousands and thousands of people coming across every day. And I'm old enough to remember back when Jay Johnson, the guy who was Department of Homeland Security Secretary under Barack Obama, when Jay Johnson said, hey, 1,000 people a day would be a crisis. Meanwhile, we're now averaging 10,000 people a day. 10,000. It is unsustainable, and it will have serious effects on how our future unfolds. The people of Chicago are starting to wake up. You know, Chris and I grew up in the same neighborhood in a suburb on the north side of Chicago. I was born on the south side of Chicago. And when I see what's going on in the area of Chicago where I grew up, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to think that police stations are housing people who came here illegally, and police stations in the airport. And now there was talk of a tent city being built in Chicago. But once the lease was signed, I think it was $87,000 a month for just the land, they discovered, oh, no, it's uninhabitable because of chemicals and stuff in the dirt. But let's go spend money elsewhere. But the people of Chicago are getting fed up. The people of Chicago, the people who live in these neighborhoods where they see money being spent to house people who came here illegally and not supporting the people of the community, the taxpayers, and the veterans, the homeless, the people who might be homeless veterans. A couple of guys took to the streets of Chicago and started posting some of their videos about what they saw. And I think this could be in the game changer column in terms of where Chicago and maybe the state of Illinois are headed 315 days from now.
How do you justify leaving the amount of people on the streets that are out here? And you're building tents, warm tents, to house 2,000 illegals? I went from tent to tent. Some of these people are veterans. How do you justify people being homeless at this rate?
Yeah. The homelessness in Chicago is through the roof, but it's not unique to Chicago. California's got the same problem. New York City has a similar problem. But at least these guys are walking around and showing you what's happening in the neighborhood.
We're seeing increased taxes. We're struggling to pay our mortgages. We're struggling to pay our bills. And we have thousands of dollars every month, millions of dollars, $500 million this year to support foreign nationals. And that's coming out of our pocket. It's going to people from another country, from foreign nationals. Those countries have to take care of their people. We just don't have the resources.
Now, I think this is obvious. You know, we just don't have the resources. $500 million this year in the city of Chicago alone to support people who are here and at this point not paying taxes. At this point, not supporting the country. And when they walk across the border, they're given a cell phone, a court date, a plane ticket, which I know Chris has talked about the fact that we've taken the air marshals off of the planes flying around the country, and we've sent them to the border to process these people. Not to protect the border, but to give them a court date 6, 7, 8 years down the road. The folks that are putting out these videos in Chicago are really, really clever because they're doing something that's not been happening for a while. They're telling the truth in the city of Chicago. And they're issuing a warning to the people running Chicago. Yeah, I know it's Brandon Johnson, but he's got a whole team behind him.
We just need to start voting differently. We need to start pulling ourselves out of these government institutions, starting with the public school system. We need to move on from big government and from the city of Chicago's political machine.
So when the people who have been electing big Chicago machine politicians for decades are saying we need to pull out of the system, you think they might wake up? The problem is Chicago can't change the fact that it's a sanctuary city. So what does Brandon do? He turns the buses away, and then Texas flies the immigrants to Chicago. The answer has changed. The answer is to elect different leadership. And Brandon Johnson just got there, so it can't happen overnight. But it can happen nationally. It can happen on the governor's level. The people, these two guys who are walking around the neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, showing you what's going on. they're talking about a big change in Chicago.
This is going to impact our communities across this city to the point to where violence, murder, robbery is going to spike. Not just with Americans, but also with these people coming here. 3,000 illegal immigrants are living in this factory, almost, a half a block long? And this is going to transcend into public housing. They keep saying that there will be no public housing for illegal immigrants. That's not true. So we pay to be homeless, basically, now as United States citizens. We're going to flip Chicago red. The Democratic Party is done in Chicago, and that's a fact. By summer, you think it's a lot of them coming in. You watch the uprising of red in Chicago.
Now, I'll believe it when I see it. Flipping Chicago red would be amazing. If Chicago were to have Republican leadership, it would be astounding. Absolutely astounding. Flipping Chicago red. Now, what's happening this summer in Chicago? This guy's predicting a big change this summer. The DNC is going to be in Chicago this summer. The Democratic National Committee is holding its convention in the city of Chicago. The Republicans will be 60 miles north in Milwaukee. But the DNC is going to be in Chicago if this invasion, as I like to call it, continues in Chicago. I wonder if you're going to see more action on the streets akin to what we saw in 1968 when the hippies, the yippies, the weathermen stormed the DNC, stormed the convention, and Mayor Daley, the first one, had to marshal the police to try and stop that activity. We'll see. I don't think Chicago's got a lot of calm waters ahead of itself. I don't know if Chicago can flip red, and those of you listening in Chicago, you might have a better idea. But there are aldermen in Chicago. Basically, when you think city council type person, there are aldermen who are finally standing up and saying, hey, this isn't right. For example, Raymond Lopez, one of the few who seems to be bucking the party and saying that something's got to change here.
My mayor is blaming everyone except the person who needs to get the blame, and that is President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who are responsible for protecting and securing our borders and for having a functional immigration system. If we want this to stop, we have to secure the border. We have to stop the draw, which is all the free benefits that people are hearing about and posting about.
Yeah, and the selfies that these invaders are posting when they get their cell phone and they cross over. They take a picture. I made it. It's suddenly now viral wherever they came from. And where's Kamala Harris on this? Isn't she the border czar? And of course, she's not doing anything about it. She's busy out on an abortion tour to promote abortion because the Democrats think that as troublesome as the border is, abortion's a greater benefit for them to sell for 315 days from right now. It's a lot to get to. We have many topics to get to, including a really embarrassing, some even call it cringy video from the governor of Colorado, who's celebrating a recent addition of the illegals who were bused to his state. Colorado now has a bunch of folks who've arrived by bus, and so the governor decided to wish them all a Merry Christmas in a way we haven't seen since Lori Lightfoot was dancing and singing on video in Chicago. I'll share it with you just around the corner. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-9625 on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com.
It is the Chris Plant Show, and Merry Christmas to you and yours. I hope you had a great Christmas if you celebrated. If not, maybe you had a great Hanukkah. Maybe you just went out for Chinese food, and I hope it was terrific. Chris is back next week. I'm sitting in for my buddy, and happy to be here, thrilled to be here. I was talking earlier about the immigration issue, which I think is going to be huge because the impact the economic impact on our cities is massive. For example, New York City, the public school enrollment is said to be, and I have to get the exact numbers, that's why I'm kind of fudging it, said to be 50% of the new students do not speak English as a primary language. 50%, which means you now have to hire people who do speak whatever language they're speaking, and they're not all from Spanish-speaking countries. There are gigantic numbers of folks crossing that border from India, from North Africa, from China, from everywhere. So it's really troubling. It's going to be costly. But the governor of Colorado seems to be very happy about the influx of new immigrants to his state. Jared Polis posted on he has a Spanish Twitter X account, which is kind of interesting in itself. But he decided to wish them all Merry Christmas.
Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Prospero año y felicidad.
Now, far be it for me to criticize anyone singing, because I can't. But that's just cringy, and it's even cringier when you see him dancing. It's really cringy. And this is on the same weekend as a couple of busloads of new migrants came to Colorado. We'll see how he feels when maybe that number gets about 7 zeros added behind it. I'm not sure where it's headed, but Colorado can't be going in a positive or a negative direction when it comes to receiving more immigrants. Everyone's going to share the wealth, using those Chris Plant-approved air quotes with my fingers. Joe is in Chicago, listening on the great WLS. Joe, welcome to the Chris Plant Show. Joseph, are you with me?
Hello?
Joseph, you've got the mic, sir.
Hello?
Joe, are you with us? If not, we're about to run out of time.
I am with you. Hello? Hello?
Oh, okay, Joe. Joe, what's going on in Chicago?
Can you hear me?
I can, but you apparently can't hear me, so we're going to have to come back to you. Jeff, real quickly, I've got a few seconds left here. What's your answer to this problem? Jeff in Virginia.
Mike, my answer to this problem is that, what would be voting the bums out, of course. And you know what? So election integrity is something that we have got to get the left to a C is a problem. And China's been in our technology forever. We outsourced our technology to them for the last 25, 30 years. And anybody thinks that they aren't in the enemies under the wire, the ghost is in the machine. Anybody thinks China's not in the machine everywhere they can possibly be. They're just not playing it right. Why
you're right, sir.
Simplify?
You're absolutely. The clock is our enemy now, but you're right about China and election integrity. Opelka for Plant on the Chris Plant Show. Welcome back to the Chris Plant Show. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Mike Opelka is my name, sitting in for my friend Chris Plant. And I want to get back into some of the topics I need to cover, but I feel it only fair. It's only fair that we make one more attempt to connect with Joseph in Chicago, listening on the great WLS, of course, and see if he can hear me and I can hear him. Joseph, welcome back. Can you hear me, sir?
I got you. You got me, Michael?
Rock solid, sir. And you wanted to make a point about what's going on in Chicago.
I did, but last night I was visiting relatives and drove past your old house and tall trees, and Sister Pauline says hi. I just wanted to pass that along to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm in the middle of the ghetto here now. Chicago has become officially a ghetto. Think Spanish Harlem.
Okay.
You cannot walk after dark 5 blocks without being worried for your life. Everybody I know has a gun. everybody I know has concealed carry. You should see the streets, State Street, you know them well, Michigan Avenue, lined up with illegals.
On the Miracle Mile? Whoa, hold on, Joseph. On the Miracle Mile, where we used to go, for like a family trip to say, if we had money, we'd shop in these stores. That's now lined with homeless along Michigan Avenue?
Every block. Every block. Beggars everywhere. They've turned the city into a ghetto, into a slum. I was standing on my balcony watching the riots, watching the police have to stand down. And my high-ranking cop buddies told me, you're going to regret getting this Johnson guy in here, even worse than Lightfoot. And boy, were they right. This guy hates himself. He hates America. He hates whites. It's a terrible place to live right now, Michael. Just terrible.
That breaks my heart because Chicago, even though it was under Democrat rule for most of my life growing up there, and I left when I was 18, Chicago was still a city that worked. That was one of the re-election slogans from the old Mayor Daley, a city that works. And I just see this, and it's frightening.
Now it's a city that jerks. It doesn't work anymore.
That's sad. And you talked about Mayor Brandon Johnson, who will probably be a one-term mayor without question, unless he's recalled. He's blaming everybody but Democrat policies. I pulled this clip from late last week.
We have a governor, an elected official in the state of Texas that is placing families on buses without shoes, cold, wet, tired, hungry, afraid, traumatized. The governor of Texas needs to take a look in the mirror of the chaos that he is causing for this country.
Yes, and none of that is true because the blame lies in D.C. It's all
There's so many dynamics. Michael, there's so many dynamics. We got the Democratic National Convention. Obviously, Joe Biden's not running again. I mean, does anybody think the guy's running? There's not a chance.
Well,
so Pritzker wants to be president.
Oh, God help you. God help us.
Yeah, I know. The biggest self-loathing Jew in the world, right? Has been handed everything and hates America, hates Jews, hates everything that's good. Just wants welfare states just for power. He spent $170 million to get a $150,000 a year job.
Well, money doesn't mean anything to him. It's obvious that the power is the currency of Governor Pritzker and many in the Democratic Party. Joseph, there's one thing I want to ask you about because as we're talking about the impacts of all of the influx of these invaders has on these cities, there is an example, a specific example to Chicago that I think we're going to see spreading around the country. And I'll see if you can verify this. A friend of mine from the firehouse at Peterson and Pulaski has said that
sure,
the old area of Sauganash and Edgebrook and Forest Glen.
Know it well.
Yeah,
it's my shortcut to get out to the suburbs. But go ahead.
Okay. That they have a budget problem, so they can't fix the overhead garage doors at the firehouse. The city can't fix the garage doors because it costs more than they've allotted. Meanwhile, we're spending all this money on housing these people who are here illegally, etc. So the fire trucks and the ambulances are parked at other firehouses overnight, so that if there's an emergency, the crews from this district have to go to another firehouse in order to get the equipment to go there, meaning, of course, delayed and longer response times for both fires and medical emergencies. And this could be what's going to happen around the country in big cities if we don't solve this problem. And people aren't seeing how it's affecting everything else. But the schools in New York, where they now have to hire teachers with at least 5 different language skills for 50% of the students, to a firehouse that now has to park its trucks and its ambulances at other firehouses blocks away, leading to more and longer response times. It is true. It has to be true. I just feel like
it's true,
nobody...
but you omitted one thing. You have to play hopscotch over a bunch of illegal aliens to get from one firehouse to the other. I mean, this is a city where they make the cops pay for their own bulletproof vests. Can you imagine you got to pay for your own bulletproof vest as a cop to protect the people of this city? How skewed that is, how absurd that is, how cop-hating that is.
Well, I think that actually used to happen in New York City until, and I'll have to do my homework on this and look it up, until I believe it was Yoko Ono stood up and said, cops paying for bulletproof vests? No, we're going to raise money and buy bulletproof vests. I think until they're shamed into it, they don't understand that that's part of, should be the normal uniform. No cop should have to pay for a bulletproof vest.
Right.
None.
And I mean, I'm sure you brought it up, but this Johnson immediately gets his hands in the till. These guys learn how to steal really quick once they get in power in Chicago. He puts the illegal aliens on a dump that is unsafe to be in, and he got like $60 million for the project. Put all the stuff up. Oh, by the way, there's PCBs in here or whatever it's called, but it's okay. Stick those illegals in there. As long as I can get my hand in the pie. He's stealing all the TIF money that's supposed to be going to organizations that are supposed to do good in different neighborhoods. They are stealing it all. They consider it their money. The TIF money, they consider theirs.
And you're right on that, Joseph. And I don't want to get too obsessed on Chicago, but I do think we need to have everybody understand Chicago is going to be your town.
Microcosm, right?
Yeah. Chicago.
Well, we're going to have the DNC here.
And those guys who put out that video I played earlier are issuing a warning, and I don't think the Democrats are hearing it. I think they're tone deaf to it. I think they assume that the black voter is going to just take it and vote for whomever will be there. And I think they have, as the saying goes, another think coming.
You're right. The black people are going to revolt. I know a lot of my black friends are going to vote for Trump, and they voted for Trump last time. And I'm going to tell you another thing that's going to happen. This is just my prediction. We have all these lakeshore liberal Jewish people that hate themselves and are pro-Palestinian and stuff like that. But guess what? They're all going to vote with their pocketbooks because they're getting crushed. And they're going to say they're going to vote for the Dem, and when they go in there, they're going to vote for Trump, and Trump's going to crush. That's my prediction.
From your lips to their election day handle on the voting machine. Let's hope it happens, Joseph. Thank you. Thank you for
carrying
stopping.
The torch, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you for stopping by Basswood Circle and giving a wave to the old homestead, and tell Sister Pauline I've been behaving myself. I appreciate it. And there he goes. Joseph in Chicago. Sounds like he might have some history on both me and Chris. Let's grab one more quick call here. Jerry in West Virginia, while we're talking about the problem of this mass migration infiltration of our country. Hello, Jerry.
Hi, Chris. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but Chris is on vacation. Okay. It's Mike. I'm in for Chris this week.
Mike. I'm sorry, Mike.
That's okay.
I apologize, Mike. One of the quick ways you could probably enumerate the illegals to get rid of them later would be to declare each one of them a public nuisance. There are laws in the books to do that now.
Well, that's interesting. But Jerry, you can't declare a human being a public. You can't blanket declare a human being a public nuisance. We'd be vilified.
You'd have to do it individually. Right, you'd have to do it individually, Mike.
I understand. Interesting idea. Jerry, before you go, your buddy, Joe Manchin, is saying he's going to attend this big event in New Hampshire that typically signals someone's going to run for president. Do you think Joe Manchin's going to make a run at the presidency as an independent?
Yes, and I don't understand why, other than to take votes away from the Democrats.
Well, then that's a good thing.
And it would be a good thing. Apparently, it's supposed to be he and as a vice president would be. I can't remember his name now.
Romney? Are you talking
Nevada.
about? I'm sorry?
From Nevada.
Oh, Romney. Oh, no. From
Romney,
Nevada.
Yeah, Romney's supposed to run with him as vice president.
I'd be
It
surprised.
could happen, but all it's going to do is take votes away from the Democrats, and that's it.
Well, then I'll endorse him. If that's the case, I'll endorse him. But thank you, Jerry. Appreciate you being there. Very good. Very good. No, I don't think we can declare people public nuisance. Now, if they're doing something to be a public nuisance, yes. Yes, we can. Si se puede. We need to talk about a couple of things. We need to talk about the New York Times, which I railed against earlier today because they printed an op-ed from the Hamas-picked mayor of Gaza City, who's blaming everybody but Hamas for their current situation. But it's printed in the New York Times, basically a pro-terror op-ed. They're also writing that they're hearing the DeSantis campaign appears to be done. There are reports that the two biggest super PACs supporting Ron DeSantis are pulling TV ads ahead of the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primary. And if that's the case, that's a really bad sign for the DeSantis campaign. If that is the case, it may be the death knell. And so that might move some interest either back to Donald Trump or to Nikki Haley, which the Nikki Haley nomination received a whole lot of attention this weekend over people claiming that Nikki Haley can't run, that she's not eligible. We may need to touch on that a little bit. But since I'm not a constitutional scholar, I'll just give you my street take on it. I know there's a whole bunch of people that just want to cut the legs out from under Nikki Haley. I say let everybody run. Look, Donald Trump has what appears to be an insurmountable lead right now. The former president appears to be coasting to winning the GOP nomination. In fact, if we look at the current odds from electionbettingodds.com, that's where I go, because I think people betting tells me more than people answering telephone survey polls. I think there's more credibility when your own money's on the line. And currently, Donald Trump is at 79% probability of winning the GOP nomination. The next closest person is 63 points behind him. That would be Nikki Haley. So it's a shoo-in pretty much for President Trump to get that nomination. And if you want to see those odds, they change by the minute, it seems. Electionbettingodds.com. But we'll get into whether or not Nikki Haley has a problem, or at least try and touch on it. It's Mike Opelka. I'm in for Chris Plant this week. Thanks for being here. You can join us as well. 888-630-9625. As I said, we've still got to get to Rand Paul and the Festivus list of government waste and maybe do a little bit of awarding the media malpractice of the year here on the Chris Plant Show. It is the Chris Plant Show, wrapping up the second hour of the program, trying to get to everything, but we get engaged in conversations, which I think is a good thing. We need more conversations. And to that end, I have to tell you, I've put in a request. I don't know if it'll happen this week. I've put in a request to see if John Fetterman will afford us 5 minutes of his time. Because over the past few weeks, Senator Fetterman, the guy that wears the hoodies and the shorts, has sounded like his brain fixed itself. You know, he had a stroke just before the election. He's been saying things like Senator Menendez needs to go. He's supporting Israel's right to defend itself. He wants the border closed. So maybe, just maybe, wouldn't it be amazing if we could get 5 minutes with Fetterman? That's all I asked for. And I think it has a nice ring to it. I'll keep you posted on it. I was mentioning that the New York Times is reporting it looks like it's nearing the end of the DeSantis campaign as money appears to be a bigger and bigger problem. When your super PACs are saying we're not going to put any more ads in Iowa or New Hampshire, that's a big stinking deal. And it kind of feels like Ron DeSantis has made Iowa his testing ground. He went to all 99 counties. He got the endorsement of the governor who previously endorsed President Trump, and he was trying to do everything. And yet the needle has gone the wrong direction for him. So will he just regroup? We don't know. I'm speculating, just as the New York Times is. We don't know. He may hang in there. Who knows? But there is a lot of momentum going in the wrong direction for him, which means it's got to go somewhere. And Donald Trump has picked up a little bit, and Nikki Haley has picked up considerably. And that sparked a whole bunch of vitriol on the internet with people screaming back and forth at each other, as they do on social media, saying that she's not eligible. She can't run. According to Legal Information Institute, which is out of Cornell, out of the law.cornell.edu, natural-born citizen, and I'm quoting here, natural-born citizen refers to someone who was a U.S. citizen at birth and did not need to go through a naturalization proceeding later in life. Under the 14th Amendment's naturalization clause and the Supreme Court case of United States versus Wong Kim Ark, this is from a while ago, anyone born on U.S. soil and subject to its jurisdiction is a natural-born citizen, regardless of parental citizenship. This type of citizenship is referred to as birthright citizenship. One can be a citizen while not being a natural-born citizen if, for example, that person gains citizenship through the process of naturalization. Nikki Haley was born here. It is the opinion of many legal scholars that she's eligible to run, while people are just screaming at each other on the internet. I will wait to see if any of the big legal voices weigh in on this. But it sure seems like Nikki Haley's eligible. So if you like her, vote for her. If you don't, vote for somebody else. Now, maybe I'm wrong on that. Let's get a quick opinion here. Michael in Gainesville, Virginia. Hey, Michael. Welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning, Michael. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Yeah, we had this discussion more than a year ago, you and I, on air, about Kamala Harris and natural-born citizenship. And what you just read from the Cornell Legal Institute is a misquote of the Wong Kim Ark ruling. Wong Kim Ark was not ruled to be a natural-born citizen. He was ruled to be a citizen.
I'm not talking about Wong. I'm talking about Nikki.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
birthplace is not natural.
I'm not talking about Michael. I'm not talking about Wong. I can see. I don't want to go over this again. It's Mike the Lib. I should have known when he said Happy Holidays, not Merry Christmas. That's my bad, people. I apologize. Hour 3 just around the corner. Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on the Chris Plant Show.